Let's welcome our friend Craig today. He's the co-founder and CEO of the local HandyMan Group, where he developed the model, brand, and franchising systems to take the local handyman brand with one location, that's 604 Handyman, to currently 4 operating brands and numerous locations in British Columbia. Year over year, his revenue has increased over 350%. The local handyman group is a home repair and handyman service franchise that supports their franchise partners with robust operational systems and marketing plans that create an effective springboard for their franchise partners. Craig brings 2 decades of business coaching to support franchise partners at all levels. They are the honey-do list problem solvers. The local handyman group is currently in Canada, but I think they're on their way to America. And that sounds like a song, doesn't it, Ray Allen? Craig is an accomplished entrepreneur, and actually for 17 years, he was in multiple brands called When 800 Got Junk and Wow, One Day Painting. He took the leap, not only leaving South Africa to immigrate to Canada in 1988, but he took the leap into starting his own business and starting the local handyman group. I've had the pleasure of knowing Craig for a couple years now and look forward to our conversation today. Let's welcome Craig. Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent to that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from hitting your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop. All right, adventure team, we got Craig with us today. Craig is somebody I've known for a number of years who is also in the handyman space. I love it. He is a Canadian, and Alan, you're loving that part because why?
Well, he's actually South African.
Oh, it's right, he is South African.
And what I love about South Africans, so I've got a couple of sets of South African friends, including one in Calgary. They can drink you dry, number one, and they love meat. So I was visiting my friend in Calgary, and I'd never heard of Biltong. And so it turned, do you know what Biltong is?
Nope.
It's essentially jerky, and but they've got all these different flavors and coriander cracked on it and things like that. Well, this guy was making Biltong, and he got all excited that I wanted to try some, and so he packed my suitcase full of Biltong to come back to the States, and so I was totally panicked, coming back into the States because I didn't know if I could bring in, unprofessionally processed meat.
Did the attack dogs just grab you at the incoming?
You know what? The border people aren't as concerned about Canadian and U.S. Yeah. So I walked through. I didn't need to be that nervous, but it was delicious.
It is definitely the national food of South Africa. If you don't like Biltong, you need to get out. And I also make my own. And funny enough, my wife and I tonight are having Steak Fest with red wine. So it falls perfectly into the drink and the meat.
Do South Africans ever eat a vegetable? I mean, I know you've got Mrs. Ball's chutney.
That's it.
Oh my God. So I thought this was a podcast about entrepreneurs, but now we're talking about, but you know what? You get a little bit of everything here, right?
That's
you
right.
You get a little biltong, you get chutney, but we always get drinking. So to that, cheers, Craig.
Cheers.
All right. Looking forward to talking with you a little bit more. So to set this up a little bit, I actually introed you a little bit before, but let's talk about what you started and where you are today with the Handyman Group.
Sure. So we started 604 Handyman, which is the local area code here in Vancouver in the Lower Mainland, a little town called White Rock, which is a suburb of Vancouver. Started at 120,000 people in population. My wife actually ran the first location, had no background in home repair, handyman services, but what we knew we could do is deliver a brand, an experience, communicate properly, put systems in place so that when we hired people, we could make them successful. And so that was step one.
And when was that?
That was in 2017.
2017. Here we are in 2021. Yeah, great.
4.5 years ago, first location, doing your standard kind of 10 grand a month startup. And we had our handyman. Kristen, my wife, really pushed hard on how we delivered that service. And with her being a woman in the industry, when people would call, not getting someone that might talk down to them, it just took off like wildfire. I had always looked at the business and said, with my franchising background and working at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, it was, how can we then duplicate this? So do we follow a corporate model or do we follow a franchise model? Franchising's in our blood. So we said, let's franchise the Lower Mainland, have 5 or 6 locations, 604 HandyMan, really drive that hard. I have a pretty good following on LinkedIn, and I started getting messages pretty quickly when people were seeing the brand saying, Craig, how the heck does 604 HandyMan translate to Alberta or Ontario or wherever? And with that, the kind of light bulb went on, and we said, well, we need a brand that's going to be an umbrella that's going to pull all these local brands together. I went on a URL buying spree. I bought about 180 different URLs with 416 HandyMan, 905, every area code I could find.
So where did you buy your URLs?
Which
Just went to GoDaddy and started buying.
GoDaddy it is. Go buy
It
it.
all started with that Super Bowl commercial.
It all did. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. It was probably there subliminally. So we then said, hey, let's be this local vibe and feel for a brand with a national presence. I think my wife coined it the best to say it's the who's to blame factor, right? So in the past, you would call Geek Squad from Best Buy to mount a TV, because if the TV fell off the wall, who's to blame? Best Buy. Are they going to take care of it for you? Is there a warranty? Is there someone more than just the person that came to install it? And we said, well, we want to do that in the handyman space, right? So have that larger presence, but with that local entrepreneur, business owner, supporting the local hockey team or whatever it may be. And so that's where people really gravitated to the brand. So we expanded to 403 HandyMan, which was Southern Alberta. And for some reason, from Calgary down to the border, it just took off. We sold out Southern Alberta. We have 5 locations there. We then went to Saskatchewan and sold out Regina and Saskatoon, sold out BC except for Vancouver Island. And in Alberta, we only have Edmonton left. We just actually sold another franchise 2 days ago for Grand Prairie. And it was really interesting looking at the brand grow, because the first take that a lot of franchisors have is, let's go to all these big major metros. And we started seeing a ton of success in towns of 100,000 people, where we could take our branding and our systems and our approach to the business and own that market a lot faster, because there was less noise, right? If you're in Vancouver, there's so much more marketing happening.
Right.
I saw on your website you have 2 different packages based on territory size. I thought that was clever.
So that is a model that it's too bad you told me that is clever, because we're moving away from it.
Just something more clever, I'm assuming.
Right.
To something more clever.
Well, welcome to good ideas and then changing. Pivot.
So then we said, hey, we're doing really well in the West. Ontario as a market is the same size as the Western Canadian provinces. But with that, we looked at our branding plan. We did a bunch of research on what's it going to be like managing 14 brands in one province. And so we decided to go into Ontario as Ontario HandyMan. So we've sold Ottawa, Niagara region. We're working a couple of other deals right now. But so it's Ontario HandyMan, Ottawa, Ontario HandyMan, Niagara, etc. And so to date, we've been franchising we ran the business for just over a year. So we've been franchising for 3.5 years. We just hit our 27th location. We have taken the model and spent the last 4 or 5 months of, a ton of investment and time to be able to franchise in the US. So we have boots on the ground now in Florida. We don't have a location sold yet, but we have our franchise development partner down there is talking to candidates right now. We started our marketing a couple of weeks ago. There's about 15 leads that we're working right now. So we're very excited to be able to bring what we do to the States. The market's obviously massive. If you look at Texas is the same population as Canada. So we look at that and go, wow, the goal of Canada being 100 locations, which is our 5-year goal, to take that and then, amplify that in the States and really push there has been very exciting for us. It's been a ton of work to cross and be able to franchise down in the States, but I think it's going to pay off. And, we have great franchise partners up here that have been fantastic to work with and have really taken the brand to another level because we listen to what they have to say, and there's so much good feedback, and taking, not just saying, hey, we know the way, and actually listening to people and adopting some of the feedback has been really powerful for us.
Going international is the challenge. I'm assuming the franchise laws are different in two countries. I know we were actually talking to a marketing guru on our last podcast, and I know Canada has the double opt-in when you're doing marketing. So there's things that you may just assume are the way they are, and they're not when you go into another country.
Yeah, it is night and day. I mean, I think when you look at the customer or the consumer, I think there's so much similarity there. But we had to do all new FDDs. And, it's always interesting when you go into another country and you say, we had this experience. I won't say who the bank was, but open our bank account, have them do a opening balance for the FDD and go to the bank and say, okay, we're going to put some money in the bank. I'd like a credit card. No.
No.
I'll put money in a term deposit. No. And then at the end of the day, I just said, because I remembered in the States, you guys have Visa check cards. So you can still use it as a credit card, but it's just coming straight up. So anyway, so you have to, it's much easier in Canada because we have our credit up here and, operating lines and loans and credit cards and all that stuff. So to really go in even though we have this presence up here, to go in, you're just a brand new guy. Luckily, we have the brand up here, so we can at least say to people, have a validation call with any of our franchise partners, and they'll tell you the experience and what we can do. So there's the value. But definitely strange going into a new country and basically being told you need to prove yourself to us for about 3 years before we can do anything.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Yeah, I've been at my own business now 13 years, coming up on just under 5 million this year. Went to the bank looking to change relationships, and they're like, well, we'll lend you money now. I'm like, yeah, I don't need the money now. Yeah, it was 13 years ago, big guy.
Could have used it then.
Don't need it now. You're not helping me. So, gosh, there's just so much to go into. Let's dive into a little bit of the franchise and how you're getting the feedback from your partners. Do you have a call with them? Do you just say open feedback, send me the feedback of what you're going to do? How do you do all that?
So we obviously have business coaching calls with our franchise partners. The best feedback I always find is set in a very casual setting. So the way we're chatting right now. So we have an opt-in call every 2 weeks for all of our franchise partners. Some are, in an area where they're still the technician. Some are managing their guys and they have a little bit more flexibility on time. But every 2 weeks we have an opt-in call. Last week, I think or 2 weeks ago, we had probably 15 locations on. And we basically just go around the loop and we do a quick SWOT analysis. How's the business? How are your people? Any cross regional accounts? So we're working with a lot of property managers now, so head offices in Calgary and Toronto. Well, how do we take that and get that across to all of our locations? And we're starting to get some exposure from the States for property managers who I think are just searching up here or getting Canadian accounts. And we were on the call, funny enough, 2 weeks ago. And I had Regina and Saskatoon on the call, and I saw this email come up, and it was a property manager. They had 7 locations in Regina, 7 locations in Saskatoon that they needed handyman work done on a weekly basis. So I said, hey, it's a good thing you guys are on the call. There's some good news. I'm going to send you this email. But during those calls, going around, that's what gets me really energized, because you guys know as well, right? Being an entrepreneur can sometimes be lonely because you are doing your thing. Only you know what's going on in the bank account. Only you know what's the wins and the losses. And so with franchising, the superpower, I've said this numerous times, whether it's in a video or writing it up, the superpower of franchising are the franchise partners and the community that they form together to be able to have exclusive territories and share everything. Hey, this is working. Hey, you should talk to this property manager. And so those calls where we take feedback and you get these little golden nuggets out of that we then go and explore further is just awesome. And I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now. On the last.
You're dropping it. I love that. The superpower, obviously I didn't go franchising. I went and built my own and stayed right here in Atlanta and kept building it. But you're right. You're alone. And with the franchising, you get the benefit of other people's ideas, other people getting to talk to them. One of the things we've talked about before, and I want you to talk about this a little bit. Al and I both said, when you start a business, what's your number one goal? Get freaking people in the door and get some money coming in. So how do you help your franchisees get up to speed and do that magic thing of getting that all knowing cash flow, right? The only way to live.
Yep. No, absolutely. So first we have some pretty robust planning. So we have a business tool that we use where we go through revenue as a forecast for the next 12 months. We look at your gross margin, so your cost of goods, and then what drops out of the bottom, what is your break even, so that our 4 pillars are revenue, lead gen, culture, and unit economics. And if you don't understand the unit economics in the business, you're really running blind. I'm not saying you're going to succeed or fail, but you're running blind. So we first make everyone understand the numbers and what they need to do to be successful. Then we tie a marketing plan to that. So we say, we have a marketing plan, all of these tactics. Here's the conversion rates on these tactics. Here's the cost of these tactics. And so if you do these things, all things being equal, at the bottom, it calculates what that revenue should look like. So the actions you take this month should translate into revenue next month. And so we try and tie those two together. What's nice with our brand is that we're in a very fragmented industry. So as you know, that's a lot of mom and pop, and it's that self-fulfilling prophecy of the guy that does $100,000 for the rest of his life because you look for work and then you don't answer your phone or emails because you're doing the work. And then you go, oh shit, I need to find more work. And then you go and do,
Right.
And so that guy has the same revenue for 15 or 20 years. It never changes because you're doing the same thing and it's the same outcome. And so what we look at is, we call it the race to 30. So 30 small jobs a month is a full-time guy in a van. So how do we take that race to 30, do that over, say, a 90-day period, and then get the franchise partner in a mindset where they're ready to scale and hire the next guy and the next vehicle and the next guy and the next vehicle, understanding that your margins get better with the more people you have because you have less unbillable hours, et cetera, et cetera. But to get that springboard in a market, we look at marketing very holistically. So the Google ecosphere, right? So what are you doing on Google Maps and what are you doing on AdWords, and how are you getting above the fold on a marketing level when you're out there? Because artificially you can rank faster there than organically. Then what do we do on a networking level? Then what do we do on a guerrilla marketing level? And then we do a little bit of direct mail, which just complements that kind of really focusing in on a market. And when you actually do all those things properly, it's amazing. I always look at the what's the loss of opportunity to paint a picture as to where you could go or should be. And I always say this, if you do 20 door hangers after a job, okay, we normally say that our competition are like ninjas. They come into a neighborhood, no one knows who the hell they are because they're not branded. They do the work, they disappear, and that's it. It was like, who the heck was that? I live on a cul-de-sac at the end of, so whoever comes down our street is either living here or is a service. And if I see someone, a plumber, they have a nice brand, I see they're working with Mrs. Smith. Well, if I need a plumber again, I might ask her, how were those guys? But if you do a door hanger or you knock on someone's door, well, now I have their information and I'm going to get third-party validation. So if you look at conversion rates on door hangers and you consistently do that throughout a year and you paint a picture of converting, X amount of leads to jobs, what our average job size is, our franchisees' jaws kind of drop because they're like, I'm missing out on 30, 40K in work because I'm not doing this basic thing.
Right. Everybody wants to talk about, hey, pour money in pay-per-click, pour money in Google. Let's do this because Google's the big behemoth in the business. But you can waste $4,000 in a month. And you would just would have printed out like 20 of these door hangers and taken the time to go do that. Now, we don't do a good job of that here at the Trusted Toolbox. However,
so you're speaking aspirationally.
you know what?
Yeah.
I do as Craig said. Do as Craig does. Don't do as I say. Yeah.
I have a question for Craig.
Go.
You just mentioned that some of your franchisees are actually the technicians, but I watched the video on your website, which was great, by the way.
Thank you.
And one of your franchisees, it was a husband and wife, and neither of them have any industry experience.
Yep.
So it's obvious to me that you don't have to have the industry background to be successful with you. You didn't have that industry background, I'm assuming.
Nope.
What percentage of your franchisees actually have that background? And if you don't have that background, what kind of training do they get so that they know at least enough to be dangerous when they hire their technician?
Right. So great question. So one, we're really proud of like diversity within the business. So, 55% of our franchise partners are female, and they kick ass because they know how to communicate and they know how to multitask. My wife, Kristen, always jokes like,
Is that what that is? Multitasking is doing a bunch of things at once? I do a bunch of things at once. I just don't get anything done. That's called a hummingbird.
I do them
All right.
poorly.
at least I'm open enough with my wife that if I'm typing something, there's no point in talking to me because I have one thing on the brain and I need to stop. And so, but to get back to your question, you can either be a technician, and if you're a technician, we're still going to show you how to scale because we want people to scale and get themselves working, the old Gerber E-myth, like working in the business or on the business.
Right.
So that's always our goal, regardless of people being a technician or not. We look for business people. We just sold a franchise to a construction company, actually going to fold their construction in under the brand because they really like the brand. But for a lot of people coming in, it's Ottawa as an example. He was an electrical engineer for Chevron in Nigeria and was traveling back and forth between Ottawa and Nigeria and really connected with the brand, which is the most important thing. And then we said, I always ask people to be very honest and say, what do you suck at? Like, what are you awful at? And he said, my wife won't let me climb up on a ladder because I'll hurt myself or someone else. And I said, okay, great. So part of what we need to do is fill the gaps of where you suck. So if you are a technician, but you know nothing about social media, we're going to focus a little bit there. So with our Ottawa location, part of our top goals on the launch was to find him the right person. So it held a lot higher weight on the launch checklist to find that right guy that could estimate and do the work. And there was a level of expectation that we said to Abby Oden, who's our Ottawa franchise partner, to say, you're going to have to commit to this person. So put him on salary. It's going to cost you for the first 3 months, but then he'll be paying for himself. And he's going to be able to feel like he's invested in and will invest in the business. And then we can do a train the trainer program because this guy is super skilled, can estimate, etc. So we really do look at, so the short version to, I guess, the answer is we look for business people and we train you on how to find the right handyman based on, bedside manner, skill set. We have a couple of tips and tricks where we do a practical interview. So, hey, I need this and this done around my house. How are you with my tools? Are you messy? Do you drop F-bombs in front of customers or not? How are you?
I do not drop F-bombs in front of customers, only with my guys. Training.
I don't know if you drop F-bombs or not.
No, I'm good.
So business fit, brand connection first. All the other stuff we can teach you. We can teach you how to market. We can teach you how to manage people. We can teach you how to hire the right person. And if you can hire the right person, doesn't matter if you have a carpenter or a plumber or whoever, what sort of business, if hiring the right person is going to help the business, that's what we really focus on.
I really like what you're saying because so many franchise systems, especially the bigger they get, it's essentially a cookie cutter and you are trying to buy a business in a box, but you're nimble enough right now to where you can really focus on each new franchisee. So, it's a great ground floor opportunity still where you go for what you suck at and you guys fill that gap. I think it's brilliant. What an amazing thing.
I know. I love where they're at because like you said, if you got 200 franchisees and you're part of that bigger franchise aggregator right now, especially here in the States, it's getting really popular where franchises are getting aggregated. They get lost in the shuffle, especially the smaller side.
Yeah. And I mean, in my experience in franchising, we had people who were amazing at management, or we had people who were amazing at marketing, but they were horrible with people, but it didn't matter. They got the same message. They got the exact same message from the franchisor every time. So I love what you're doing.
Let's talk about the scaling for a minute, because scaling is one of the things I brought up in my book.
Oh, you have a book?
Thank you. I do have a book. But I talked about scaling.
Craig, do you have a book yet?
He will after this.
I will after this, yes.
So in scaling, talking about the different aspects, because you hit on, is the E-Myth, you got to be the technician, the guy in the tools, or eventually you become the manager. You pull yourself out of the tools. But if you want to be the big picture thinker and the entrepreneur, just kind of doing all that thought, you get yourself stuck. As you've been taking your franchisees through the scaling efforts, as you're taking them either out of technicians, becoming managers, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges these guys have?
Bad habits, inconsistency. So I'll give you an example. If you wait to do everything at the end of the week, your Friday afternoon is going to be a nightmare instead of it should be happy hour time, right? So what I find is people sometimes have to, so Cameron Harold, who used to be COO at One Area Got Junk, he hired me in 2004. We had a stop doing list, right? And so what are you actually doing that's adding value? And what are the things you have to stop doing? So I actually went through this exercise like 3 months ago. My wife and I acquired half of another brand that we're now franchising. And I had to look at some of the phone calls I were having, like, what are these weekly calls I'm doing? Are they adding value? Like, what's my role? And my wife was great with saying, well, why don't you take those 2 calls and put them as one call, get everyone together for this? Why don't you do that? And it's really opened up that I can now focus on things that are important for the business where I add the most value. And so I think what happens with franchise partners who may be the technician is maybe you don't invoice that job at the end of the day. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Maybe you don't complete this in the system. I'm going to do this. And then you sit back at one point and you go, crap. Okay, now I have to do payroll. I have to do this. Oh, this admin stuff is just hell. But it's not really hell. It's just, you're just not spacing it out and doing these little bits at the end of each day. So what I find getting franchise partners to scale is having the conversation. One of the guys that does some consulting with us, John DeHart, he started Nurse Next Door, and they're a pretty large franchise. And he said, coach people hard, but coach them with heart. And I loved that when he said that, because it is true. Like, I just had this call with one of our locations and said, if you guys are running our CRM system, our booking system, so we can see everyone's schedules, and that to me is one of the biggest indicators of, is someone's hair on fire and they're running around like a crazy person, or are they actually organized? And so I said to this location, if you guys are doing a great job, but if you actually want to scale, not having things completed from 10 days ago, or not having your schedule look completely sharp so you can start the day out organized, end it organized, I said, you're not going to be able to scale. And it was a bit of tough love, because I know that they want to go really big. But it was, if you don't do the little things at the end of each day, it's just going to be hellish to you. And who wants to do the hellish things?
Right. You're singing my song. I love that stuff. We talk a lot about having the right habits. You can have habits, and habits will define where you go. Habits will either help you go up that mountaintop of success, or habits will help you go down to the depths of despair. Because if you have those bad habits and you procrastinate, or you don't invoice like you just said, and you don't just get after things each and every day as an entrepreneur, that's how you get stuck and mired in that. Well, it's just easier to be a technician today. It was easier to go fix Mrs. Jones' door. It was easier to go hang that blind. It's harder to go back and say, hey, you still owe me for this job. You got to pay me for it. And that's hard. I'm going to avoid that. And then it all bottles up, like you said. And then Friday afternoon, you're going, okay, why is everybody standing at my door looking for paychecks? I don't have the money to make the payroll, all that other stuff that happens in the beginning.
Yep. No, I totally agree. And it's that consistency of going back to the silly door hanger thing. If you do 500 jobs in a year and you do 20 door hangers, what's the math? 10,000, right? 2% conversion, 200 jobs, $300, $400 average job size, $80,000 you just threw away by not doing it.
Those are so it's that blocking and tackling, that little stuff. I'll go back to this. You can spend $4,000 a month if you want on pay-per-click. And you can.
Yep.
And
I have. And you're like, okay, what did I get for it? At the size I am today, you start watching and doing those things. But one of the things that hit me as I grew was I was walking around listening to all these entrepreneurs, and I'm talking to everybody. I'm like, oh man, you got to hit your captive audience, because in the handyman business, we have repeat business opportunities all the time. And so I'm sitting there telling everybody, oh yeah, hit your current customers once a month. I went back, I was telling all these guys this in a networking event. I go back to my office and I looked, and the last time I'd done it was 11 months ago. So now we send out a newsletter every month, and that's easy, right? It's not even that expensive nor hard to do, but every time I drop it, right now my mailing list is at 14,000. We easily get 15 jobs that same day.
Do you use I can't remember if Home Advisors in Canada, there was one called Kijiji or something like that. Is that a big part of your business?
Surprisingly not. So we had talked to Home Stars. There's a couple of other ones, Renovation Find. There's a new, it's very new, and it's actually a super, super cool idea. So I had a call with their CEO. It's called BidMe, BIDMII. They're just rolling in Ontario right now. And it's a really cool concept because we're starting to do a lot bigger jobs and more commercial stuff as well. And they basically bring together customers who are looking for a project, good contractors. When you actually agree on the project, the customer actually funds the project. BidMe keeps it in trust. You then get signature of completion. They pay. Really cool platform. So we're starting to do work with them right now. We're actually just, our Niagara location is kind of piloting it with them, because they do a ton of marketing. The projects are really good, but it's only for specific locations really for us, because some of our locations could build a house and, some really focus on doing the TV mounting and the light switches and all that type of stuff.
So you guys do different stuff. I mean, they tailor it based on where they're at. So you got guys who can move walls, but you have other people who just hang blinds and put up pictures.
Exactly. So we position our brand to the consumer on simplicity of $80 an hour, 2, 3, 4 hour jobs. You can book online in real time into our system, etc. That's the sizzle. The steak is really and see, here I go to meat again as a South African, but the steak really is that magical golden list of property managers and realtors that you deal with. Mm-hmm. So we don't go in and say, hey, we'd like to bid on this $100,000 a year building maintenance contract, and we need to go through stratas or HOAs or whatever. We go in and say, listen, here's our insurance. Here's our clearance letter for workers' comp. We are able to come in and help you whenever you need us. We can be the pressure relief valve. So a property manager calls and says, we have these 20 fence pickets and 30 gate latches, blah, blah, blah. Our guy looks at it and goes, yeah, it'll be $1,800. We know you can approve up to 5. Boom, it's approved. Now we've helped them. No one's bitching at them about, the homeowners aren't complaining. The property management guys that are run off their rear ends because they only have one guy that's supposed to, take care of 100 condos or whatever, we're now helping. So all of a sudden we're really building on those lists. So we have the same, door hanger analogy as that list. So the list that you go to your end consumers on, we're also building more systems to say, how do you work that list of 100 contacts that you're every month emailing or calling or having a coffee with? Because 20% of them are going to give you 80% of the work off that list. So if you have our Calgary location does really well, 65% of their work's probably from 7 property managers.
Yeah. I love that you guys use the property managers. I'd say one of the biggest areas, kind of that gold nugget for me, was other contractors. Other contractors don't want to deal with some of this picayune stuff that's a day. They want to do the $100,000 big remodel, blowing out a house. They don't want to deal with, in our case now, we do anything from $20,000 to $50,000 bathrooms down to the handyman for a day. But other contractors, and you start networking with people like that. And we talked about networking a little bit. How much do you push that with your guys in the beginning with networking? Because you talked about a couple of the tenants.
So we push it very heavily. I'll joke with someone and say, you can't run your business from behind your computer. Now the pandemic is, this is more networking, right? On screens. I mean, we have 11 locations, franchise locations. I've never met them in person. Like, it blows my mind.
Wow.
But let's talk normal times. We tell people you need to get out and network. You need to go and see a property manager at their office and try and get them to have coffee, leave your brochures, leave your business cards, find out who the, main broker is as a brokerage for a real estate firm, get into those locations, do a lunch and learn. Did you guys know? And that's the sweat equity stuff and the things that are uncomfortable sometimes. And that's where you really learn and develop and build as a person, as an entrepreneur. I don't know why I keep door hangers are not the be all end all. They're very small.
Door hangers are big. And
Craig likes door hangers. I know what Craig did for Christmas. Door hangers.
But it's I always joke and our franchisees will laugh. I'll be like, does your guy walk through the neighborhood and like sneak up to the house, hang the door hanger and then run? Because it's uncomfortable sometimes talking to people, right? Cold calling. But if you really want to push your business, you should knock on a door. And whether it's someone's house or someone's business, that's a big part of it. You're in people's spaces. So it's, an intimate thing of I'm working in your house or working in your business. You need to trust me. You need to trust our brand. So the networking side is big. We're really starting to push this whole fostering and farming that list that you build out, right? So the first quarter in your business, you should have a list of 50 commercial contacts that are not just, I emailed them, now they're a contact that you have touched base with. The next quarter, you should have 50 more. The next quarter, you should have 50 more. So that 10% or 20% of those they're going to give you work. You're going to be top of mind. Some will leave your list. That's fine. You need to keep filling that funnel, right? So we're really big on networking, and our larger locations by revenue, it definitely shows.
I have a question, but we need to ask
Well, Alan, you ask your question.
Well, I've got a question, and hopefully a chance for you to brag a little bit. I saw that you won a Canadian Franchise Association award. You're a Hall of Famer. What was that for?
That was for growth during the pandemic. So we doubled our system during the pandemic. I knock on wood every day. What do they say? Hard work, luck, and timing, right? We've worked hard. I think we're at a good time just with people transitioning, getting older, needing help, downsizing, all that stuff. And then the luck was that we were deemed as a service that was necessary, and that really helped our business. So yeah, it was for growth.
He's modest.
He's a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer, and he's just saying it's environmental stuff.
Yeah, no, you did good. No, absolutely. No, knowing Craig, I don't know if I talked to him like right after he started, but pretty close because I've been at it for 13 and a half years and seeing what he's done. He took a totally different tack than I did. I've gotten into bigger remodeling and handyman stuff, but I love what he's doing, going across the board and doing multi-franchise and building on his skill sets clearly that he has had over the years, because you definitely leveraged your skill sets. So you played your strengths. What advice would you have? And we'll get into those magic questions here in a minute. So people listening to this podcast, we talked about scaling. That was some great conversations there. You took a leap to start this. And you said, well, my wife did it. What advice would you have to people who say, I'm sitting right now in a cubicle, or I'm working from home, working in corporate America or corporate wherever, and I want to take that leap? What advice would you give them?
I would make sure that you're passionate about what you want to do, right? Because all of us have gone to jobs down the road that you're like, I guess I'm getting paid. So you need to be passionate about what you do. The one thing I've said to numerous candidates is a part-time thing will always be a part-time thing. If you go in full-time and you are in a position where you cannot let it fail, you are way more likely to succeed. I left my job. My wife left her job. We had no income at the same time, a 3-year-old. Houses are not cheap in Vancouver. We had bills, and we said that this is not going to fail, and we are going to bust our asses. And when you go all in, what do they say? When you get to the island and you burn the ships, right? You're there, and it has to work. And so I would say to people, find out what you are passionate about and then burn the ships.
I love it, man. I tell you,
What a great quote.
I love that. Burn the ships, baby, because I said, if you're halfway in, you're all the way out. You want to try to do this as a side hustle, it will fail miserably. And you've got to get all the way in if you're going to make this thing happen. And you better be passionate about it because there are some really low points you go through. I can't tell you how many nights I spent on the couch. I can also tell you, and I played this story out before, I had to go get a check on Thursday night to make payroll on Friday morning because I knew if I didn't pay those guys, they would all walk. And as one entrepreneur told me before I started, you're not really a small business owner until you have to make payroll, and you had to go figure out how to make it happen without anything there. Because I had no other money than that check I went and picked up and put in the bank that night.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. All right.
Burn the ships.
Burn the ships, baby.
Love
Craig has brought the heat. All right, Craig, before we let you go, we got to ask you, what is the favorite feature of your house?
I'm guessing the barbecue.
I know, bright meat. Here we go again with meat.
So it's going to be my Traeger Ironwood 885 pellet grill.
There he goes. He brings the meat. He brings the heat. That's it, baby. Let's go.
Traegers are cheating, but they're awesome.
Yeah. I do not represent Traeger in any way, but it is the greatest barbecue smoking tool I have ever bought in my life. This is my second or third one now. And it is by far my favorite.
You know what? We here in Atlanta is the home of the Big Green Egg. And we also, 5 miles from our location, which we're doing this from, we have the major distributor in North America for Kamado Joe. So we have a lot of competition here. So there's a lot of, there's a Egghead, AKA Alan. So when he hears Traeger, he goes,
No, but that's for Traeger's from my home state.
So
It's
there
from
we go.
Oregon.
So it's a horse race. Who wants to sponsor us next? I don't know. Because we're right here, baby, and we're making it happen. I love it. All right, Craig, second question. Share a DIY or contractor nightmare story in your house.
We had really nice doors replaced. And I mean like ones that you turn the deadbolt and like it bolts come through the top and the bottom and super secure, $5,000-$6,000 doors. Had it installed, was going to show our friends who were over. They're foodies. They own a restaurant in town here. So we do during COVID, they've been our COVID family. So we've only hung out with this one group. Wanted to show them the fancy new door and especially the deadbolt feature on the back door. And they came over. They had obviously not done a very good job on the install. I turned the deadbolt and the whole knob came off in my hand.
And they looked at you and said, and you're a handyman, right? Huh? How many times have I walked into people walk into my own house and go, I thought you own a handyman company. I'm like, whoa. They're out there making money. Don't worry about this. Here, I'll shut that door for you. Throwing my shoulder into it. I love it. Craig, before we let you go, what do you want to let the audience know? You want to promote your group because, I'll promote it after you're done. So tell us what you want us to, and how can people get in contact with you?
No, that's awesome. Thank you very much. So our brand is Local Handyman Group. So www.localhandymangroup.com. We're expanding into the States. We are focusing on Florida right now. However, we are looking at Texas, focusing on non-registration states, but we are registering in New York, California, and Illinois. We are looking for people that are passionate about wanting to grow a brand in their city or town and have support and be around people that have the same drive for customer experience, building a great culture, being in a supportive environment where you're actually growing, doing good. And, the money comes with all of that. So our systems, our branding, how we operate, we've really found that we've attracted the right people. It's all about fit. I could care less about getting a $60K check from someone up front for a franchise location that is not a fit. We don't want that. We're looking for the right people. So I can be reached directly, Craig at localhandymangroup.com. You can find us on YouTube at Local Handyman Group for some videos that we share there. But ultimately, going to the website gives you a sense of who we are, our people, brochures, all the stuff in there. But at the end of the day, our brand is about helping people grow something with our support. So it's their business and all of our brand.
Well, I'll double down on Craig. Like I said, I've known him for a while. We've talked. We actually use the same CRM system, so we go back and forth and bang some things around. He said, I don't just take a $60,000 check unless I think you're the right fit. How many times have you heard a franchise group say that? And they're full of shit, right? This guy's not. And I'm telling you, if you want to get the support, I know a lot of guys locally here in Atlanta who have gone into a franchise system, and they all tell me that, woe is me, I'm not getting the support I want, but you can do it. And with the right support and the right team, I think you got the right fit. So I love it. I also think you can find him on LinkedIn. If you can't find Craig Jooste on this, we'll go ahead and put all the links in the website page, but you guys go out there and take a look, especially if you're in Canada. I think it's
Florida.
a great idea. And Florida. So Canada and Florida, which is
I think
funny.
that he just wants to have his annual meetings someplace warm.
That's the plan.
You know, my own parents just left Michigan. They're actually literally flying and landing. They're going to be in Naples in like 10 minutes while we're doing this. So they're the snowbirds too. And when I go down there, 3/4 of that community is Canada.
Yeah.
And I play golf with them, and it's the truth. Canada is the nicest people.
They're the nicest people.
They're the nicest people. So, Craig, you're awesome, man. We appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with us, and go make it happen.
Yeah, best of luck to you.
Thanks, guys. Much appreciated.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Small Business Safari. Remember, your positive attitude will help you achieve that higher altitude you're looking for in the wild world of small business ownership. And until next time, make it a great day.